Welcome back to the haven where feelings speak louder than headlines. Welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. If you've arrived here, it's because you want more than glossy photos and rehearsed smiles. You want the living pulse behind the screen. Today we bring you a story brewed like strong Turkish coffee, bitter at the edge, sweet in its promise, starring two faces that shaped a generation's idea of romance, Yaman and Demet Özdemir. Before we pull back the curtain on this intimate chapter, give a small sign that you belong to this community. Tap like to keep real emotion alive, subscribe so you don't miss any of our unfolding sagas, and, if you want to be part of the heart that beats beneath every video, hit join. Your support is the breath that lets us tell the truths others overlook. Ready? Let's step into Istanbul's hush. Last week, while Istanbul throbbed with its familiar, restless symphony, horns stitching the streets together, ambition sparking against the steel of the city, Can and Demet reached for the opposite, a pocket of pure quiet. Shallow summaries, the sort that inflate clicks and peddle easy drama, pushed a warped version, talk of a crisis, of fraying nerves under the merciless grind of the industry, of frozen glances and silence like ice. Let Secrets Behind the Stars draw the true outline. The picture was never a collapse, but a reinforcement. At a tucked-away table in a discreet restaurant, protected from hungry lenses, something essential unfolded. People close to the couple, those who understand the fragile scaffolding required to keep a love steady when the public keeps watch, say Can asked for that meeting not to lay down edicts, not to draw a line in the sand, but to let his heart be seen. For weeks, he has been carrying the heavy coat of his next project, a production whispered in corridors under a quiet code name, something like Sirocco. That weight presses hard, expectations stitched from responsibility, a storm of preparation, the hum of performance anxiety. Still, beneath that seismic pressure, his north wasn't career, wasn't status, wasn't the calculated angle of a next move. It was the woman sitting across from him. Witnesses who kept their distance but caught the atmosphere describe an extraordinary calm. Not the hush of resentment, not the heavy air before a fight, but a deep, steady quiet, two people stepping out of the world to be true. In an age where famous couples stage affection for a million bright screens, turning dinners into shows, Can and Demet chose rebellion in its most human form, sitting, listening, speaking softly. He didn't argue. He unclenched. The voice everyone knows for its command softened until it betrayed everything he felt. He looked at Demet, a woman who has learned to carry her own light into every room she enters, who has paid for that glow with long nights and unending focus, and offered something that was at once confession and promise. Pause for a moment and lean in. Have you ever noticed your work, or the rush of living, nibbling away at the time you owe the people you love most? Did you fight to reclaim it? Tell us below. Your story matters as much as the ones we tell here, because truth lives in all our days. Ken admitted, with a clarity that cuts through noise, that a fear had been growing inside him. The relentless machine of work, the 4 a.m. calls, the location scouting that swallows weekends, the script pages that turn dreams into logistics, was gnawing at their shelter. He worried about a thin distance forming, too small to notice unless you're paying attention, the kind that can, if ignored, become a gap that swallows everything. He didn't want to wake one day to find they had turned into polite strangers bound only by headlines and old photographs. He wanted to close that space with presence, with breath, with the kind of time that leaves a mark. Let's slow down, he murmured, not as an ultimatum, but as a quiet truce. Not a full stop, not a retreat from ambition, but a recalibration. He asked for time that belonged only to them. Not minutes scavenged from frayed schedules, not scraps negotiated between flights and fittings, but real hours no one else could claim. He painted her a vision, nights where they don't fall asleep clutching highlighters, mornings where coffee is sipped instead of swallowed, afternoons where conversation meanders like a shoreline and the clock becomes a background hum. He switched off autopilot to say what needed saying, we matter more than the engine we feed with our talent. His plea revealed a simple truth. Success is a hollow cup if your hand is empty when you lift it. And then came Demet's answer, the moment everything softened. If you think fighting for a relationship is the most romantic gesture of all, now's the time to like this video. And remember, Supporting Secrets Behind the Stars with a join helps us bring you the kind of storytelling you won't find elsewhere. Demet told him what she had been feeling too, that when he is near, her pulse finds a frequency no spotlight can replicate. In that cocoon of quiet, she said she had listened with all the doors of her heart open, and that her rhythm matched his. She wanted more time marked with their names as well. The gossip mill spun that conversation into rumors of a last-chance talk, of lines drawn and divided paths. But once the echo fades, what's left is something rare: two people, persistently observed, choosing to be the authors of their own piece. Friends say this wasn't the first time Ken raised a red flag about the pace that steals the soul. He had watched Demet shoulder a schedule as intense as his own and recognized the danger. In trying to give everything to everyone, you end up offering nothing to yourself, and less to the person you love. His request wasn't a penalty, it was preservation. It was a way of saying, the most important headline needs to be written where no one else can read it: home. And the public response? A revelation. Instead of feasting on whispers of a split, comments filled with gratitude for the honesty. Fans called it real love. The kind that doesn't shout through fireworks, but stands its ground in brave, ordinary conversations about needs and limits. The tenderness didn't end at that table. Quiet voices, our sentinels in the dark, say they left with more than warm words. They left with a plan carved from bedrock. Ken suggested a refuge away from the city, a short escape to Bodrum. Not the neon Bodrum, not the yachts and the staged candids. He pictured days stretched thin as horizon lines, sea salt air smoothing thoughts, and a calendar cleared down to its bones. Let's go be ourselves, he told her. Let's really rest. No stylists, no orchestrated outfits, no content creation, no checking light for that perfect shot. Just dawn walking across water gold as honey and nights where the Aegean's rhythm replaces the metronome of their work. Demet's friends say she stared at her chaotic calendar, breathed deep, and did something rare. She moved mountains to make space. If the whispers hold, they'll vanish soon, not to drift, but to live. Yet behind the curtain of a getaway, something larger took shape for Ken. The request for time wasn't a bandage for a busy month. It was a blueprint for a new cadence. He's advocating for small rituals stitched into their week like golden thread. Evening walks once the city exhales. A midweek dinner they cook together, where intimacy is born in chopping and tasting and laughing at a sauce that went wrong. Hours where phones aren't just on silent, they're banished, so that the only signal worth chasing is the one carried in each other's eyes. To outsiders, that may sound like mundane idle. To them, it's vital, heartbeats of a love that intends to last. Listen to the murmurs around them and a single line appears. Ken knows he is lucky. He tells close friends he loves a woman whose light keeps maturing into something softer and stronger at once, and he's grateful. He understands ambition's bite and refuses to let it swallow tenderness. Some swear they've heard him, after endless nights on set, murmur, "I don't know how I'd live this life without her." It's not a crafted quote. It's the honesty that spills out when the cameras go quiet. Naturally, care like this inflames the question that streaks through comment sections and group chats. Is this the prologue to something official? When a man begins to map time with reverence, the world notices. When he holds silence like a sacred place, people start to wonder if he's practicing for forever. No one in their circle will confirm rings or reserve venues. But the bond feels different, more deliberate, better anchored. In recent weeks, as Demet's obligations grew unruly, witnesses say Ken showed up with extra gentleness. Late-night rides home, hot meals delivered to chilly sets, messages that sound less like check-ins and more like a hand on the back. That's why their story has quietly become the week's most discussed thread here at Secrets Behind the Stars. Not because it exploded, but because it clarified. Conversations like the one they shared that night are difficult even in private. Carrying them out while a city watches takes a different species of courage. They say a small candle sat between them on the table. Neither of them blew it out. They let it keep time with its own patient flame. Ken leaned in, elbows near the edge, attention absolute. Demet met his words with complete listening. Then came a slight, perfect moment, a shared laugh over a private memory, laughter that sounded like pressure leaving the room. This is how love sounds when it refuses to surrender. The months ahead will demand everything. Scripts will be long, nights short, and the wait constant. But they won't stumble into it unarmed. They have a plan. They have pasta Tuesdays, yes, Tuesdays, where sauce simmers like a lullaby and the phones stay in exile. They have Friday walks chasing the last light along the Bosphorus, talking about nothing until nothing becomes everything. They have a horizon pulling them to Bodrum, where gulls write new lines across the sky and the tide edits out the rest of the world. They've built a fortress from ordinary rituals and given it a single job: protect the kingdom of their love. So while the headlines tried to plate shock for supper, the inside of this story tastes different, gentler, sturdier, meant to be lived, not scrolled. Can asked for time. Demet said yes. And we were left holding a lesson stitched in real feeling. When you strip truth of glitter, it doesn't scream. It endures. What do you think, friends of Secrets Behind the Stars? Are these small rituals the secret ingredient to a love that doesn't fade under the lights? Tell us below, your voice completes this story. If this walk through the quiet corners of the heart touched you, subscribe, ring the bell, and share the video with someone who needs a reason to slow down. We'll be back with the next whisper, the next unveiled truth. Until then, may your evenings be unhurried, your coffee warm, and your silences kind.